All right, we're live. Social workers of Alabama, how you all doing today? Man, we've got a lot to cover today. It was a good week in supervision, and we covered so much, um, so many topics, so many things that I've just been learning on my own, that I've been trying to bring into the groups. And so it's just been exciting. This was a very engaging session, couple of sessions that we had this week, and I want to share with you some of the things that we got into. And the topic that we're coming from today, or going to be talking about today, is what causes the dissociative shift. What causes the dissociative shift? Now, I'm not the one to claim that I know everything about dissociations or an expert on dissociations, but I want to tell you what I know from what I've been experiencing and some of the things that I see, and give some examples that might be able to be helpful for you all. So, when I'm talking about a dissociative shift, those of y'all, and this is just something that it's not even a real term, it's just a term I'm using. This and what I'm speaking about is when you have someone who switches from being just happy go lucky, or just in a their disposition is pretty just a regular disposition, just switching right into anger, rage, um or even outside of their personality. Now, I'm not talking as much today about dissociation as relative to switching into another personality, but we will have a video example if we can get to it, that's relevant to that as well. So actually, I'm talking about it all, but more specifically, um, when someone just snaps, okay, and we see this a lot with individuals who are are perpetrators of domestic violence, and I've seen it a lot in my clients. Now, this is the thing that I want us to be mindful of, because it's not always anger and rage that causes someone to dissociate. Okay, it's a variety of different emotions that might be experienced, and there's different types of, or different ways that you can dissociate. Some people dissociate and go into another personality, and where we have with the DID. But then some people, they are kind of just checked out, okay, and they don't remember anything from the time when the situation occurred to the end of the dissociation moment. So what we're going to be talking about is when you make that switch. We'll talk about all this, but when people check out because things are too intense, what, just in general, when you're thinking about dissociating or someone dissociating, have you thought about what brings them to that point? That's what we're going to be talking about. What brings them to that point? Yeah, and I've even seen where someone might pass out just because it's just so overwhelming what they're experiencing. Okay, so we're going to talk about that too, and I just want to let you know that it's my opinion that many times when we're experiencing that shift, that thing that we see that causes the shift with someone who's dissociating is relative to pain, emotional pain, okay, deep emotional pain, also unresolved trauma, and also an inability to maturely process very delicate emotions. And we're going to see about that, right? We're going to see about that as we talk today. We're going to jump into some of what is causing individuals to get to this dissociative state. But just really quickly, I want to show you we're going to show you a video, and I want you to assess this video. I want you to give your opinion about what's going on in the video, when because we one of the figures that I study a lot is Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson is one of the few people that that I have seen to have more extreme sociopathic, even antisocial type of behaviors, and then has had an interest in really bringing about healing for himself. And it's remarkable some of the things, because usually when you have narcissistic style, antisocial type behaviors from a lot of individuals, many times they're not as prone to be engaged with therapy unless it's some type of reward, just no interest. But with him, we see something different, but we see a lot of stuff that Mike has dealt with struggling with his demons, and he's taking it on. And so I'm gonna show you this video real quick. But let me see. Let's snap into this video. Um, but just before we get into that, I want to quickly um, show you as well what we have coming up. And we'll just spend a minute on this. Um, we have a social work supervisor training coming up on November 11th and 12th. We want to see you there. If you're looking to bring in some, you want to get some clients, we give you a video that shows you how to get supervision clients. And if you're looking for a side income or looking to, get into supervision, this is what I'm talking about, is what we're going over in supervision. I have 4 groups, and I want to tell you about and share that with you. Come to our training and learn what we do as supervisors, and learn to become one yourself. And then we have the DSM-5 training. This is a required training for all LICSWs. You have to take a training on the DSM-5, on the updates and things like that. We have that training for you if you're looking for one. There's others, but come check us out. And this one that we have here is on demand. And check with me for details. But let's get back into what we're talking about here. So I'm going to show you a quick video here. And what I did in my group, was had my supervisees to I had my supervisees to assess this situation, right? And let's just get to the video, right? And I want you to look at it too. It's kind of scary. I want you to look at it too, and I want you to assess what's going on here with Mike. We're going to see a shift. And the question is, what is happening with this shift? What is happening with this
Mike
shift?
Tyson almost attacked this reporter after mentioning Mike's daughter.
I mean, I was speechless.
I don't know. If something happened that day.
But whatever happened that day, was there a new Mike Tyson that came the next day?
No, I did some cocaine for a week. I had to get high. I had to Beck.
And I don't know if you heard him say, you have to go now.
Right there. That's the switch.
Chilling.
That's the switch. What's happening there? What just happened with this switch and disposition? If you notice, it's not just a switch with his disposition, but there's also a switch, and I'm gonna play it real quick again, with his voice. I notice with Mike, when he gets emotional about something, his voice gets kind of low and raspy and things like that. But what Mike is saying, that and just to give a little backdrop here, Mike is talking about the loss of his daughter. Okay, his daughter was only about 4 years old, and she was in a horrific incident at his house. I believe it was at his house. I think she was strangled or something by the cord of a treadmill or something like that. I don't. Yeah. So it was she passed, and so he's talking about that, right? And so this is why he's getting emotional. But with normal situations, if we talk about grief and loss, which is a trigger or sign, like if we're having this reaction, are we having some grief and loss issues that are unresolved? We may talk about that a little bit more, but we're focusing here on this shift and how does this happen. We don't have a lot of time to cover. I want you to look at it again. He switched.
Go now. That was one of the most chilling second and a half or 2 seconds I've ever experienced in any interview I've ever done.
Want to take the stuff off?
Man, so you wouldn't have had to tell me to go
Mike
twice.
Tyson
If
almost
I was there in that situation with Mike, I'd have been like, Mike, look, man, we're just gonna come back and get the cameras and stuff later. We'll get back with you, right? And so this can actually happen in your therapy sessions. And what I've been noticing, you all, is the importance, just most recently, with doing. I give everybody the dissociative scale. It's called a DES2. And what I'm finding is that so many of your clients don't even know that they dissociate. I'm not saying that Mike dissociated there, okay? But I'm describing what often happens with that type of temperament, if they get really enraged and anger. He was able to temper himself. You can see he had a little bit of control, and he's like, look, before I do go into a, where there's no return, I'm going, and we're going to show some examples, some other examples of this type of thing. But let's just stick with the anger part. This is usually what happens a lot of times when people dissociate. Like I said, I've been using the scale, because the scale is, it shows, it helps you to determine if your client is dissociating, because what happens is you have clients that you can go through a long-term therapy with a client and not even know that they're dissociating, because they don't even know that they dissociate. Okay. And so this skill helps to put it in place so you can catch it at the beginning, and it can help your therapy to go in the right direction, because sometimes you don't always want to just go pulling out stuff, because you can have a situation like what happened with Mike. Why did Mike switch from, instead of a normal grief reaction, if it's grief that he's experiencing, to where you might have sadness and crying like that, and he switched right into anger, maybe even rage? Why does that happen? So if that was you and Mike was in your office, after he left, and you're trying to figure it out, because you probably would, after he left, you're trying to figure it out, what would be your answer to why this occurred? And this is something very important that we need to know. Something we need to know. So I'm going to get into it real quick. So what causes that dissociative shift? As I mentioned, pain, emotional pain, unresolved trauma, inability to maturely process painful emotions, right? Okay. And so sometimes we can make that switch. In order to truly understand a client, we really have to understand what happened to that client. Okay. And so anytime we see something going on with the client, instead of just looking at it as being a bad thing, we want to start asking the question. I'm going to repeat this over and over again. What happened to Mike? So what we do know happened to Mike is that Mike was raised in an impoverished situation. He never, for those of us that's familiar with Mike, he says he never told his mom that he loved her. We didn't have that type of relationship. Now, he did have a fine relationship with his mother, but they just didn't say the I love you stuff. I think she was disappointed in me as a person. All this is relevant. Mike was bullied when he was young. He grew up to start demonstrating antisocial personality behaviors and narcissism and things like that. But robbed people is a account that this rapper this rapper reported that Mike went up to his mom when he was little. The rapper was little. Mike went up to the dude's mom and just ripped the earring out of her ear. Okay. Mike didn't deny it. And just ripped it out of her ear, just robbed her. Right. This is the kind of stuff he did. But Mike, most of his life has been suicidal and has had addiction. Why? What happened to Mike? Okay, in the context of this situation, we're talking about the loss of his daughter. Okay, we're talking about the loss of his daughter, right? We got to understand what happened to Mike. But while we're on that, I'm gonna skip around a little bit. I have to condense this, right? I have to condense this, right? So we're not gonna get it all. But at the same point where we're asking what happened to somebody, we also have to try to dig deep into understanding what the person's negative cognition is. And what do I mean by that? What is the core belief? What is Mike's core belief? If he snapped because of this, there's likely, and this is what we always want to identify, there's a core belief that Mike has that makes this a bad thing because of what he believes. There's a core belief that lies beneath that makes this situation a bad situation because of what Mike believes. And so I want to get into that a little bit, and I want to break this down. The core belief. So let's just say, for instance, you're in a situation, or your client's in a situation, and they're on the phone with them, they have a disagreement, a person just hangs up the phone on them, right? And the client, or let's just say it's you become angry. Stick with the client. The client becomes angry and they become enraged. Why would that happen? Okay, so we're still talking about Mike, but we got to look at it from a different context, right? Okay, so why might that happen? Maybe because of what happened to that person. Trauma may have caused them to have this belief. And a core belief, and I'm gonna share this real quick. I had some other stuff. I'm trying to use these tools, right? So let's share this one real quick, Okay, this is a really good sheet here. I think this is one by Roy Kaesling. He does EMDR, trains EMDR and things of that nature. I got this off the internet. But so what happens is we have core beliefs, and when we're working with our clients and they have negative core beliefs, what we want to do is support them. CBT tells us that, hey, we want to get something more adaptive, more rational behaviors. Okay, something that is more supportive of them. So if they have a belief that I'm unlovable, then we will want to help them to shift to I am okay as I am. So that's an example. We want to try to help them. And this stuff really works, especially when you do it in a certain order, but we don't have time to get into that. So let's just say the person hung up, the phone was hung up on them. They end up becoming upset. And then we say, oh, what happened to them? Okay, maybe they had some trauma, things like that. Okay, we want to answer those questions. We also want to know what is the core belief that made them react the way that they did? In other words, what is the negative view, the negative thought that they have of themselves that caused this to be a problem? So possibly they believe and feel that I'm unlovable. Let's just say that that's their core belief. So now this would make sense that when somebody just hangs up the phone on me, okay, let's just say when we talk about what happened to them, okay, maybe they had a history of when they were really young that they were abandoned by a family member. But say they were abandoned by their mother. Okay, say that they were prostituted by their mother. Okay, and so they were being sexually abused, and then when they asked for help in a situation or situations, mom was never there. Mom would ignore them. So now when we think about this, okay, how somebody could just switch like that, okay, and usually if we have dissociations, it's directly relative to trauma, okay, to trauma, and usually a lot of childhood trauma as well, okay. So this can unconsciously bring me back. Just the phone being hung up unconsciously, my mind is not working out right. It could bring me back to that feeling, okay, of when I was abandoned and not feeling lovable or important by my mother. Okay. So I just put up the sheet and you can see the sheet. I really like this one, but we're gonna show you another example of how someone can get angry, possibly dissociate, and not even recognize that they're doing what they're doing based on pain and trauma. Okay, just to a normal situation. Someone upsets them. Okay, so I don't know if any of y'all have heard of the serial killer, and his name is Iceman. Okay, we're gonna try to bring up this video, a quick clip here of Iceman. And I'm always losing my stuff, even though I don't know why this thing just seems to disappear. Okay, give me one quick second, and we're gonna see an example. Okay, there we go, of how someone who hasn't learned how to communicate trauma, someone who has dissociated, okay, possibly, um, someone who kills people, okay, again, well, let's just play the video real quick.
Still figuring they were gonna mess with my head, and we went to war. To their surprise, I was no longer taking the beating. I was giving it. And that's when I learned that it was better to give than to receive. I've been known to hurt people for no reason. If you check out my background as I came up, I could be anywhere, and if somebody humiliated me, I would think nothing of hitting them with a cue stick. In an instant. The only thing they might have done was made me feel bad or challenged my authority at the time.
Puklinski's reputation as a tough guy with a hair-trigger temper grew.
Okay.
By the time he was 18.
Stop this. Okay, so here we see an example. Okay. Here we see an example of this guy, the Iceman, and he says that in this situation that he's talking about, he just felt humiliated. If he was just humiliated, if he was made to feel bad, if somebody challenged his authority, then he might just snap off and I don't know if it just said it here, but he would kill people because of this stuff, right? He would get carried away in his anger and rage. What happened to him? Okay, we know that he was bullied. There were some issues at home. Okay, we don't have time to go through the whole thing. Okay, but there was some things that he experienced. Okay, in his background that brought about responses in the way that we saw from him, as far as the violence and things like that. And so I got a little off track here. But so what I'm saying is this: in a situation with Mike, what happened to him? What might cause this switch? Okay. What was Mike's history? Possibly was Mike feeling humiliated in the interview? Did he feel bad? Was he reminded of maybe personal trauma? What if he felt that, man, I was not able to protect? Maybe Mike felt unprotected at some point in his life, and this reminded him of that, and it made him feel bad talking about it. Maybe he felt guilt or shame. So here we go. We're gonna pull this back up. This sheet really helps when we're talking about guilt, shame, which ones. So a lot of times when we want to help the client to identify the core belief, we're not able to identify. We might ask them like, okay, so when the phone was hung up on you, or when the interviewer started to speak about whatever, how did that make you feel? Okay, and sometimes they'll name something on this list. So with Mike, we might want to name out, has he felt feelings of worthlessness, or that he's bad, or that he's not good enough, inadequate, that he's responsible for things not happening? When we go back to what he's saying, that his mom, his mom died, and he's still thinking that, that his mom died with a belief that that he was a disappointment. Okay, so that's another one. Am I feeling like a disappointment? I can't even protect my own child. Something like this must have come up with Mike. And maybe there's some guilt. I'm a failure. It's my fault. You feel what I'm saying? I should have done something. Maybe if I was there at the time that it happened. Okay. And so we want to try to move the person into an alternative view. Okay. I'm going to show you one more quick example. Well, we don't have time. We don't have time. But we don't have time. So, but we had showed this the other week about the lady who had DID, and what I believe many times with at least some of the narcissists that I've worked with directly and indirectly, some of the sociopaths, I call it like a dissociated pain. Because in some of these situations, I see individuals who have pain that they have experienced from a loved one, many times a caregiver, that at some point in their life, this was conscious. It was conscious that you were abandoned and exploited sexually by your mother, but which is an indication that I'm of no value, I'm of no worth. Okay, but we shut that out of our mind because mom was the only person that I had. And I've seen this working with clients that they won't talk about their experience that's negative with mom or dad or the caregiver. And so it's a dissociated pain. And these are the worst ones because You are being triggered by things like what we saw with Iceman, being triggered by things like what we saw with Tyson that are relative to unresolved concerns that you had based on a traumatic experience. So we're reacting to things that to many others might seem like small things, but because we have unresolved traumas and because these situations are bringing to our current state, we're feeling the emotions, the sensations of that experience that was traumatic for us. And then we are switching into anger and rage, many times dissociating. And in that example, the woman had been molested, and it seems like it may have been someone close to her, maybe even her father or something like that. And she's saying, I kind of think I know what happened, but she was not willing to go there. And so she's got all these different personalities and things that's there to try to help her cope. So in a situation, how do we help Mike in this situation? I had some videos and things that I show, but we got to wrap it up. It's a lot of things that we could have done or could do, but this is a powerful one that I've used. And I showed a Law and Order um, video clip some time ago. And so you could do multiple interventions with trying to shift the cognition from a negative view to a positive view and things like that, which we don't have time to do that right now. But like if that's not working, I'm gonna tell you one that I found to work really well is when you have let's just say in the situation it was Mike, okay, and we're trying to help Mike, right? And he's in session, and Mike is blaming himself. He's putting all that shame and guilt on himself, and when he thinks about it, it makes him angry. So we can't hardly even talk about it. But let's just say that we had somebody like Mike, right? And they're experiencing this. Your client is experiencing this, and so you might say something like, "What would your daughter?" And you might say something like, "What did your daughter call you?" Let's say the daughter called him Poppy. Okay. So what would your daughter want Poppy to think about this situation? What would your daughter, how would she want you to live your life right now? Would she want you to be depressed, sad, angry, feeling guilt, feeling like things are your fault? How would she want you to live your life right now? And that one right there, what I seen, because a lot of times when we're just leaving it on our own as humans to resolve the situations, then we're blaming shame because that's what we're used to. But then you're bringing that loved one into the picture. And the thing is, if there was a good relationship, you know, then we're bringing that into the picture, and it's hard to fight off that reality that, you know what, she really wouldn't want me to be feeling like this right now. Dang, I'm sorry for this bad audio. She really wouldn't have wanted you to be feeling this way right now. And so then we do the Law and Order, the little example we saw from the Law and Order video, and we're doing a 1-2 on them. We're doing a 1-2 on them. So then what we would do is say, so now we're going to get you to write a letter to ask for forgiveness to your daughter. So he's getting to get it all out. Forgive me for not being there. Forgive me for not being able to protect you. Forgive me for not, you know, whatever it is. He gets the opportunity to do that. Number 2, ask myself for forgiveness. Without this process, if we had tried to get Mike or someone else like Mike to forgive themselves, it wouldn't work. But the sequence puts it in line. So I'm getting forgiveness from the daughter, but now I forgive myself. And so then he gets to get that all out. So we're not going to have to be dissociating anymore because we could take it on. So we're getting that out. And then lastly, from here, we're making a declaration of what we're going to do in the future. I will no longer allow for this to hold me back, to keep me angry, to keep me scared, to keep me in guilt, or the things that have been holding me back. And we want to do this in honor of the daughter. Okay. So as you would want me to live, we want to have him to implement those kind of words and interventions. But we are at time. This is a long one. Hey, if y'all don't check it out, this is good for reference for myself because this has been some powerful things that I've been learning as I'm trying to teach it to everyone else as well. And so hopefully this has been helpful. But we'll do it again next week. Y'all take care. Until then. All right. Bye-bye.